Hi there, I'm Joe Meling here for Weaver Leathercraft, and we're here today to finish up this series that we've been doing, the introduction to floral carving. If you haven't followed along, be sure and go back, catch the earlier videos. We have a downloadable pattern that you can get as a corner piece for a tooled journal cover. Follow along through the videos. We go step by step to go through the process from start to finish, from printing this off and transferring your pattern onto the leather, cutting it in with a swivel knife. We go through bevels, pear shaders. Today we're going to head over to the marble, use the rest of our tools, and finish out the detail and bring this pattern all together and finally bring it to life so you can put it together on your journal cover. So let's head over to the marble and get started. All right, today we're going to be using a few different tools. The first one is going to be this leaf liner, and that has the lines running along that tool. So we're going to make sure that those are headed in the right direction. We want them angled up towards the tip of your leaf. So I'm going to come along each side of the stem. That tool's designed to be able to work on both sides. So I work on one side. Now I'm going to turn that leather to where I can still see good and run that tool with the other side so those lines are still running up towards the tip as we go. Now that we got that leaf done on both sides, we're going to move down here and get this other one. Notice I'm taking that tool and keeping it tipped up a little bit to where I'm not getting the full tool impression. I want those lines to fade out. And we're going to do that again here with another tool. This next tool is called a veiner. We're going to use that right in here next to the stem as well. But you can see I don't want to get that full impression of the tool. So I'm going to keep that tipped up to where we're just going deep right in next to the stem and let those lines fade out. And that's going to help create more depth in that leaf and start show that rolling off of the stem there. As we move down to this next leaf, let's start looking at where we want the actual placement for each vein to be. As I roll up that stem, I'm spreading them pretty evenly as we go. But then when we go to the other side, watch that you're making them even from side to side. So if I have a vein on one side of the stem, I'm going to want one on the same spot on the other side. There's two other places on this pattern that I'm going to use a veiner. First one is right out here on the outside of that flower stem. Now, the curve of that veiner is going to be the same curve that the flower stem has. And in the same way, when I move up here to this swirl up here at the top, I'm going to turn the curve to where it's the same way as the curve of that swirl. I'm going to start this tool light and then start fading it in a little bit deeper as I get up towards the top of that swirl. Don't be afraid to move your leather to where you can get to things. You don't want to get in an awkward position as you're trying to get around there. The next tool, one that comes from the basic tooling set as well, is this cedar. We're going to hit it one time right at the base of that stem. Now switching to an add-on tool, the small mule's foot, I'm going to come in right behind that seed that we just laid down. I'm going to start deep and then fade that tool out as I go, following the curve of the stem. And that's why I like this tool as opposed to the continuous mule's foot, because you can get more flow in it. You can see that follows that stem around there. Now I'm going to come to a few more spots in this pattern with that mule's foot. I'm going to come right at these leaves. I'm going to follow the short side of that stem with about 3 hits of that mule's foot. Then I'm going to come down where I have a stop in that stump and do the same thing, starting deep with a couple light hits after it. Next, it's going to be time to actually put a center in this flower. So here's our add-on flower center that I recommended in the tool video. We're going to put that right in the middle there. Make sure you hit it down good and firm. But with the edge around that flower center stamp, I want to soften it. So I'm going to get my leaf liner back out and really tip that back, and just using the end of that tool, I'm going to go around and soften the edge of that flower center stamp there so it doesn't look quite as much like a tool impression. Now we're going to get our steep bevel back out. Now this is the same bevel that I beveled the entire pattern with in the earlier videos, but now we're going to use it to continue the lines from these flower petals back down to the center. So when we were beveling the pattern out, we held those lines back a little bit to allow us to get that center in there. But now once we've hit the center down and then soften the edges with the leaf liner, now we're going to come back and really make these petals grow back out of the center like they should. I want to be careful that I'm not hitting the flower center and those seeds around it with that bevel. But taking the extra time on this flower is really going to help make it pop in the long run. I'm going to get the flower center back out and just crisp up the lines right around the seeds in it. Alright, next let's go to the background tool. The main purpose of this is going to be to separate your foreground from your background. I'm going to go through every little background space and completely cover it with that matte backgrounding tool. The shape on this tool you're going to have to use to your advantage. It's wider on one end and narrow on the other, which is pretty handy when you're trying to get down in those little points. So you'll see as we go through here, I'm constantly rotating that tool in my hand to fit down in there. Don't be afraid to turn your leather to where you can see better, because the last thing we want to do is get this tool up where you don't want it and actually hit your floral work with that backgrounder tool. So we're going to go through the entire pattern and get that background all matted down. Alright, our final step is going to be back to the swivel knife. We're going to come back here and put decorative cuts in all of our floral work along the vines. The purpose of your decorative cuts is just to accent and add flow to what you already have going on. So it can be kind of intimidating when you go to put in decorative cuts, but keep in mind that less is more sometimes. So it's easy to get carried away and get too many cuts going, but really it's something that's going to come to you over time with practice. But we want to have our cuts start deep, fade out to light, and then think that they're always going to be fading with the flow that you're wanting to establish in your leatherwork. So here in the flowers, you can see that I'm pulling from the tip of that flower down towards the center. The cuts, I never want them to touch each other, but we're going to fade towards each other as they come down there. When it comes to placement on the cuts, there's not a definite right or wrong. Just keep in mind that they're meant to accent what you have going on and not overtake the entire pattern. One little tip to keep in mind is you always want some curve to those cuts. Try to avoid straight lines, as your straight lines will actually take away from the flow as opposed to add to it. So less is more, and always curve those lines. Thank you for taking your time to watch this video. I hope you find value in the series that we've done here. Be sure and subscribe below. I can't wait to see you on here to tool more projects together.